Welcome back to Power Platform PhD. I'm Alex, and we're going to continue our series on JSON by using Power Automate to import data from a CSV file to SharePoint. Okay, here we are at my desktop. So let's go ahead and look at the JSON object that we're going to use for the video. So we have one key value pair. So the key is going to be movies, and then the value is an array of 3 movies in the series of Friday the 13th. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that to the keyboard or to the clipboard and move on over to Power Automate. So we're going to create an instant cloud flow and call this CSV to SharePoint. Manually trigger flow, click on create. Okay. And so the first thing we're going to do is initialize a variable. This can be done multiple ways, but we're going to go with the variable thing first. Whoops, I lost that. Let me open that back up. And then I'll show you another way. Var JSON is what we're going to name the variable. It's going to be an object, and we'll just go ahead and paste in the JSON object. And while we're at it, let's add another action that we're going to initialize. And this is where we're going to actually get the movies out. So let's call this one movies. It will be an array. And then we're going to go to the function expressions of variables, which we've done in a previous video. The name of the variable that we're targeting is var JSON. And we're going to use dot notation and get out that movies key. Say add. And again, I'll hover over this. You see variables. The name of the variable we're trying to target is var JSON. And using dot notation, we're getting into the movies key. So let's see where that comes from. So this is the variable name, and this is what we're targeting. And this should return back an array. So let's go ahead and save that and see what we get. Okay, we're back. So let's see what we got here. So we initialize the variable. We passed in this whole array. So then or the whole JSON object. And then for the last one, we actually targeted the variable JSON and picked out the movies, which was the key. We can see that it's a type array. And then we have the whole array with 3 values. It's a lot to look at, but we'll see this a little bit easier once we add a little bit more to this. So the next thing I want to do is let's go back into edit mode. And we're going to add another action. All right, if you type in data, you'll get a section of actions called data operations. Once it loads, here we go. So here's the data operations. So these are all the actions that fall under that. We're already familiar with the parse JSON and compose. The new ones that we're going to use in this tutorial is select and the create CSV table. So let's go ahead and look at the select first. So how does this select work? Well, basically, there's a couple things, a couple components that we have to look at. The first one is where are we getting the information from? So it even says from, it's a mandatory field. And we're going to go ahead and look for that movies variable. So I'll click on the data Shazam looking lightning bolt thing, and you'll see there's variables. And here's the variable that we've created called movies. All right, so that's awesome. So then the next thing we're trying to do is we're trying to target things within each of those items that are within each array. So in that array, there's 3 elements, but it's going to try to map these different values with key value pairs. So let's go again. I'm going to click on over. How about we do it this way? So we're going to target, let's say, the movie title. I would say the year is pretty easy. And then we'll go with a couple. We'll go with the array, the weapons array, and the victims array. So we'll go ahead and map all of those. So let's go back to Power Automate. So how does that look like? So let's go ahead and give it a name. So we're going to name this one movie title. And then in here, there's a Power Fix function called item. And there's item and items. We want the item because we're trying to map it to a single value. So we're going to say, oops, item dot, and then movie underscore title. And I'm going to say add. And you might be like, let's mouse over that, look at that again. So item dot movie underscore title. Again, you're like, well, how do we figure that out? So we're going to go back and look at the JSON that we have. And so if you kind of look at this, you can see that it's got this movie underscore title. So that's where the underscore comes from. It's really one for one. It's case sensitive too, if I'm not mistaken. So, but definitely like make sure that however it's written in your JSON, that's how you're going to have to put it in your action. So you have one called item.movie.title, movie underscore title, sorry. So let's do year, and then same deal. We're going to go to the Power FX item dot year and add that. Let's add the weapons, Power FX item weapons, and add that. And then we're going to do the last one, victims, and again, Power FX function, oops, item dot victims, and add that. And let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. Okay, it's ran without errors. If I go ahead and click on select, we can see that in the outputs, kind of all looks the same, but we'll see that this has a body key, and we can target that with the body action or the body function expression, and then it returns this array. So let's go ahead and do a couple of things. First thing I want to do is I want to do some cleanup. So I normally, let's go back into edit mode here. I like to give these actions names so you can kind of see what they're doing. So we'll call this one, I don't know, initialize. It is an object. We'll do this var JSON. You don't have to do this, but just it's nice when you have like a ton of these actions out there. Like, hey, what was that again? It's just I like to do it that way. We'll do the next one. We'll say initialize, and it was an array. We're targeting the movie, so we'll call it that. And then the select, we'll just say select, I don't know, from var JSON maybe. Select from var JSON, which is the name of the variable name. And so now let's go ahead and look and see what this is kind of done. So again, we looked over this. It's got the item dot and then the movie. So all that's good. So the next two things we're going to do is we're going to add another action that's going to take this information and map it to a CSV table. So let's go back to those data operations. So if I type in data, we'll see that we want to get this one. I'm sorry, we already did this. Like we want to get the create CSV table. So let's go ahead and do that first. And very easily, we'll click on the dynamic keyboard, and then we can see that we're trying to pull this from this variable. I'm sorry, we want to pull it from this actually, the output. The output of this is what we're trying to target. All right. So, and then I also want to go ahead and from this point on add another action. And so once this is a CSV file, it's going to be uploaded into SharePoint. So we have to create a file. So let's try this. So let's type create file. System's running a little slow today. There we go. So here we go. Create file. The same deal here. I like to call this whatever. We'll leave the name the way it is. So without me having to like copy and paste everything, I do have some things here. So we'll use this web address. I have a folder of shared documents, which is the default documents. And then we're going to name our file movies.csv. And then for the content, we're going to have to look for that output of the create CSV table. So I'm going to save and test this one out, and I'll show you what we have. Save. Okay, it's ran, and here's what we got. So we have this create file. There were no errors. Let me show you the CSV piece of this. So if you remember, we were actually trying to map all those to those different values, those keys. And so the output, let me click on this if you can see this. I don't know if you can see it better in here, or if it's that doesn't really give you a good view. Let me scroll down here. Here you can kind of see everything is comma separated, right? So comma this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what does that look like? Oh, let's go to this finished out creating a file in SharePoint. Again, matching it to this URI to this folder path. This is the name of the file. So if I actually go to SharePoint, let's go to the documents folder, and you will see there's our movies.csv. So let me go ahead and click on that and see what that looks like. Voila. Pretty simple. So movie title, Then these are the years. Let's go ahead and move out the victim. So let's go a little further. So not very nice to look at, but the next thing we want to do is to pull this into a list, and that will be in our next video. I don't like to keep these videos too long. So in our next video, we'll see how to use the REST API to do that. But let's go back to the Power Automate. There's something else that I wanted to show you. So let's go back into edit mode. And I don't spend too much time on this, but there's a couple things that we didn't talk about in any of the videos. And if you're new to Power Automate, you may not know that there's a parallel branch here. We don't need to do that to build out this file, but I just wanted to show you that we could also do this the same as we did in those other videos, where sometimes we use variables, sometimes we use the compose. So we could do this in a compose. And without you having to watch me build this out, let's do the magic of editing, and we'll come back here in a second. Okay, so the magic power of editing. So I've now created this whole other parallel branch. Again, this is not necessary to create the CSV file or have it uploaded into SharePoint, but I just wanted to show you this, that there's a possibility to do this a different way. So we can use composes instead of using the variables. So, but it's very similar. So in the initialize object var JSON, we were using an actual object and we had to paste in the object. But in the compose, we're pasting in just the array. And so very similar to that, but the select from compose, when you're using the mapping for the different key value pairs, it's the exact same thing. So you give it a name, and if I mouse over this, you'll see that it's the item.movie title. And then on the left side, which was the initial way we did this, same sort of deal. If I mouse over this, you'll see this item.movie underscore title. And then once you get past these selects, then you have the create CSVs. These are also just a one-for-one. The only difference is I'm pulling the output from this, and this one's pulling the output from the variable. If I wanted to, I could have done another create file from variable and try to create another file, but there's no point. I just wanted to have a really quick overview of just what you could do with this parallel thing, for one, and number two, that it doesn't have to be in a variable. It could also be in composes or a couple other methods. But well, I hope you liked the video. Today we learned how we can use Power Automate to create a CSV file and import that into SharePoint. In the next video, we're going to take that information and using a REST API, create some lists from that. So please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.